Well, that time of the year has finally arrived. The cold season has begun. And with it, this old friend returned. To give you a bit of context, I live in Lima, Peru. According to historical data, temperatures here range between 15 and 27 degrees Celsius all year round. If you're watching from another country or geographical area, you're right, the temperature range here is very narrow. Therefore, people like me, who are used to city life, has a very low threshold for cold. Some people around here consider it cold when temperature drops below 20 degrees. Personally, I hate winter. I prefer to live forever at 25 degrees. Of course, I also like the cold, as long as it comes with beautiful landscape. But here in Lima, everything is grey and dark. Additionally, on this side of the world, we experience the El Niño phenomenon. This is a complex internal atmospheric phenomenon, but the concrete effects on Lima includes rains and river overflows. Although the rain Lima faces are nothing like the rains in the rest of the world, it's still an additional complication in our daily lives. Please don't take this as a geographic or atmospheric analysis. I'm just giving you context for why we feel cold in winter. On top of that, last year we also had Cyclone Yaku, which essentially intensified the effects of El Niño, and added a very important characteristic. It nullified winter. I hope you're understanding what I'm getting at. If we look at the estimated calendar for when winter starts in Lima, we see that Lima hasn't experienced the classic start of winter for 2 years. Could it be that we've forgotten how to deal with the cold? Well, at least I think we've forgotten how it feels. And not only that, according to state entities, it's forecasted that in this winter we'll reach temperatures of 10 degrees and up to 100% relative humidity. 100% relative humidity? Well, yes, Lima is a very humid city. This is not new for us. In winter, reaching 100% humidity is quite common. Did you know there's a relationship between temperature and humidity? To explain this better, I need to go back to the studio. There's this thermal comfort chart. The body reacts differently to various values of temperature and humidity, giving us a comfort zone, delineated by this rectangle. For this, we see that we are in a relative humidity range between 20 and 75%. Meanwhile, we have temperatures ranging from 20 to 26 degrees. In this zone, the temperatures are very cold. Here, they are very hot. Above, we have very high humidities, and below, very dry climate. So, we already have something that, at least theoretically, indicates the condition for our body to feel comfortable. We'll try to work with this information. Additionally, a fact that applies to Lima, and maybe all of South America, is that it's very rare to find a house with air conditioning, and I literally don't know a single person who has a domestic heating system. Taking this into account, we are going to tackle what I consider the main problem for Lima residents in winter: the cold when sleeping. For this, people use different strategies, and the majority involve using blankets or covers. We have a very variety of blankets with different textures, and, for some reason, the most used is this one known as tigre blanket. It's a textile made of cotton and polyester, quite dense and therefore heavy, and the reason for its name, it's quite obvious. But why are these type of blankets so effective against the cold? And also, why are some more effective than others? Let's find out. But first, we need to understand how our body and heat work. As a living material, our body generates energy because we constantly feed it. With this energy, it performs vital functions like breathing, moving, and keep us warm. Therefore, our body emits heat to keep us at a safe internal temperature. Values outside this range can compromise the functioning of our organs. Okay, so basically, we are a heat machine. But what happens if the environment around us is very cold? Let's see. According to thermodynamics, heat flows from the hot objects as to a cold one, like the air. And this continues until both objects are approximately at the same temperature. So, if our body needs to be at 36 degrees to survive, but the air around us is at 10, our body will have to generate much more energy to counteract the heat that is escaping. That's why the comfort temperature is around 25 degrees. And it's the balance between the heat that we can offer to the environment and what remains for us. So, this is why blankets are so effective against the cold. They create a barrier between us and the cold outside air. Dispelling myths, it's not that the blankets warm us. Rather, they prevent us from cooling down so quickly. This works because they are thermal insulators, just like our thermoses or food coolers. And they are more effective the thicker the insulator. But there's also another strategy, which is to use something very similar to a heat mirror. For example, this visor for the sun or a car windshield protector. They have this shiny layer, similar to aluminum foil, that makes the heat from the sun bounce back and not pass through. This isn't as fragile as aluminum foil. Wait a minute. I knew this foil remembered me of something. Did you also watch those survival shows on Discovery or Nat Geo? Remember how in those shows sometimes people will come out with this kind of aluminum foil over them? And they say it was to stay warm. Well, I managed to get some of those. I found these heat blankets on the internet. They supposedly work as a heat mirror, just as I explained. So, if you cover yourself with this, your body heat won't be able to escape because it will bounce off the foil and come back to you. Similarly, if there's a lot of heat outside, it won't be able to get in. Well, there's only one way to test it. I feel like a bag of chips, but surprisingly, it's working. I don't feel as cold considering I'm only wearing a t-shirt. Though, since there are holes where the air can't get in, I do feel the little air currents. On the other hand, this thing makes a lot of noise when I move. So, I don't know if it will be practical to use, but it definitely does its job to keep you warm. Plus, it's surprisingly thin for how well it works. Now, let's go back to the studio to see other alternatives. I hope you've been able to understand a bit more how heat works in our body. With this, we can start investigating strategies to sleep well this winter. But first, I'd like to mention an important point. In this video, we've analyzed the temperature topic. But if you remember, humidity plays a very important role in comfort. So, if it's within your means, getting a dehumidifier will be very convenient. However, devices with the necessary capacity to dehumidify an entire room can be very expensive. And I understand not everyone has the resources for it. That's why I'm trying to address it from an economic perspective, considering only the temperature. Maybe in the future, we can look for a solution for humidity as well. Okay, so this will be the plan. As we've understood, we could use a blanket like this for the cold. Even if we feel very cold at night, we can use a double layer. Do you also think the Tigre blanket is very heavy and uncomfortable? Especially considering there are many other materials and textures. Maybe we can finally find something to dethrone the king. First, what I did was to test each blanket and covers I found at home. For this, use one of these rubber bags that can be filled with hot water. Then, I measure the temperature of the surface of the bag, put the blanket on top, and after half an hour, I remove it to measure the final temperature. With this, I have a better idea of how effective each blanket is at insulating us from the outside. Additionally, I have to measure the length and width of each one, and also weigh them to have the weight per square meter, since not all the blankets measure the same. This way, I can know exactly how heavy 1 square meter of each fabric is and compare them. Surprisingly, the Tigre blanket was not the best insulator. On the contrary, it was one of the heaviest per square meter. With everything we learned, let's see if we can find a better way to keep us warm. For this, I think we can play with different layers and take advantage of the properties of each one. This part is entirely personal, but the first layer should be comfortable for our skin. Some will prefer soft blankets, and others more fluffy textures. I'm not going to include a reflective layer within the blankets because it will make a lot of noise and disturb our sleep. Finally, I'll add an insulating layer. For this, it has to be a thick and fluffy fabric. We'll do a final test measuring the Tigre blanket in one layer, the Tigre blanket in 2 layers and a combination of 2 polyester fabrics, one slightly smoother and the other fluffier to comfort with the skin. While we wait an hour to see the results, I have one last tip. Use these same hot water bags to warm your feet. This way, your body only has to work to keep your torso warm. Another pro tip is to put these bags under your blanket in your bed about 15 minutes before you go to sleep so that when you go to bed, it's warm and you don't freeze with cold blankets. This bag will also make your blanket igloo feel cozy. During the first minutes of the experiment, we noticed that using double tigre blankets apparently insulates better, but after an hour, we proceed to remove the blankets to check the final temperatures of the water bag. From this, we see that using a double polyester blanket performs better than using a double tigre blanket. Not to mention, it's lighter and much more comfortable. There are also these blankets where the double polyester layer is already sewn. But if you're still cold, you can add a third layer. Anyway, if you like the tiger design out of tradition, you can choose one of those designs. There are many variants on the market to choose from, and some are very creative. With this method using layers, we try to keep all the heat in us. I hope that by implementing it, you can also have a better night's sleep. Well, I definitely sleep warmer now. But not everything is solved. In the best case scenario, I spend 8 hours wrapped in these blankets. But when morning comes, I have to leave my room. Of course, we can use the same strategy in choosing our clothes, like using a different material for a t-shirt than for a jacket. Some jackets even have a padded center that serves as a great insulator, which is why many people look so puffy in winter. If this solution works for you, excellent. Personally, I don't like the noise of these jackets, especially if I'm going to wear them all day. Outside, the wine guts will make my thin jackets less effective. In this case, my body will fight more to keep warm. So, if the heat isn't enough, maybe we need something. A jacket that provides warmth. Subscribe and stay tuned to the channel because in the next episode we'll try to make a self-heating jacket. I'm Juan and this is Master of Juan. Adios!